Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the GMI Rocket Show. Today is episode 33. I'm your host, Roman Zelichenko. I'm a former U.S. immigration attorney turned entrepreneur. I'm the founder of Laborless, an immigration tech company that automates H-1B compliance, and also the founder of GMI Rocket, which brings you this show. Today, the 33rd episode, I'm super excited for our guest, Ilya Brotzky, who is the CEO and founder of VanHack. Now, so VanHack is based out of Canada in Vancouver, British Columbia. And what VanHack does is they connect tech talent from around the world to jobs, to employers that need to hire tech talent. And those jobs are not just in Canada. Those jobs could be remote. They could be all over the world. They have a massive community of tech folks who are part of VanHack, who take advantage of VanHack's different courses and different training and things like that to make them better equipped to become really strong candidates for these great jobs. Super cool. It's basically, helping people move around the world, or in some cases stay remote, to provide technology skill to the companies that need it. I'm really excited to talk about it because it ties directly in with the immigration space, right? Companies that want to hire someone from abroad, well, how do they find those folks? And then how do they get them over? And, there's so many questions. And I think VanHack has a really, really cool, really cool play within this space. So without further ado, Ilya, thank you so much for joining and for sharing your time here on GMI.
Yeah, my pleasure, Roman. This is a lot of fun. I've been looking forward to this for a while. Lucky number 33. So
yeah, that's right. Lucky number 33. I remember distinctly after the first episode I did, I was like, oh my God, I just went live and did this show. Yeah. And now it's been, more than half a year. It's really, really crazy. And I'm just, first of all, lucky to have people like you who are just willing to come on and share their story. And also just to think about how many entrepreneurs there are in the world building really cool companies, specifically tech-focused companies in and around immigration, right? I mean, you think of immigration tech as this really kind of niche thing, but when you really broaden the scope of what the world of immigration looks like, there are a lot of people doing really cool things. So again, thank you for joining.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think immigration tech does not get a lot of love. It's not like fintech or, I don't know, something more, I guess, hot, Bitcoin, et cetera, which I guess fit fintech as well. But, it's one of those underrepresented tech fields, and also very much needed, right? Like there's not much innovation happening around immigration, usually because government, right? So I think it's really cool to connect with other immigration tech entrepreneurs and hear their stories and kind of contribute my voice. So yeah, I'm also kind of become an immigration nerd, not a consultant myself, but feel like I am one, maybe an honorary one. So it's something that I've been passionate about for the last 5 years, and it's a big part of my life personally as well.
Yeah, and I'm super excited to dig into your story because you've been all around, you've lived all around the world, you've worked around the world. Before we jump in, just for folks who are tuning in, shout yourself out, leave some comments, tell us where you're calling in from. I hope we have some folks from Canada because that is where you're based right now. And of course, always hope that we have some folks in the US, but love seeing people from all around the world tuning in. So let us know who you are, where you're calling in or listening in from. We'll give you a shout out. Yeah, there you go. Oh, Canada. And, obviously ask questions along the way as Ilya talks about his story and shares everything. Okay, so to jump, from the beginning, right? Because we can jump right into the company, but the beauty of these conversations is understanding where you come from, what your motivations are, and sort of how you got to starting the company that you started. So you moved, were you born in Israel or you moved and you were born in Canada?
So I was born in the Soviet Union. Yeah, born in what I guess former Soviet Union in Siberia, which is now Russia, of course. And left when I was 2.5. So my first memory was actually getting on a flight to go to from Krasnoyarsk, which is the city I was born in, to Moscow, and then from Moscow to Tel Aviv. So yeah, that was kind of I guess a dramatic experience when you're 2.5 years old. So it kind of was formed in my memory. And remember arriving in Tel Aviv and taking a van to Ofra, which is the city we lived in, and yeah, it was I guess back then kind of a crazy to look back on how everything was, but it's one of those things like immigrating to a place you've never been, never heard of, never had like it's just funny to think about like how immigration was in the early 90s to how immigration is now, right? The early 20s, 2020s. So a lot has changed. So basically, I moved. I spent 2.5 years in Israel. I moved to Vancouver, Canada, where I grew up when I was 5, and then I went to school in the U.S. for 3 years in upstate New York, and then went to Brazil for 4 years, and then came back to Canada, and then traveled a little bit around South America, Europe, just like to go out and see the world.
Yeah, that's a lot of traveling. So you moved to, because I was also born in the former Soviet Union in Ukraine, and I also left at 2.5 years old, and I actually don't remember any of it. So I tell my parents all the time, like, I kind of wish I did, just because it would be more of my identity. But they're basically like, it's probably better that you don't. But we moved from the Soviet Union to Austria for about 6 months, and then we came to New York. You moved at 2.5 to Israel, and then I guess at around 5 years old, if I'm getting that correct, you moved to Vancouver.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, it's not like I have vivid memories of everything that happened, and just kind of like a few little glimpses here and there. So we were able to get out. I mean, I think similar to your family, right? Because if you're Jewish, you can they let a lot of Jewish people out, and I think it's interesting too, like, because we're both from the Soviet Union, and back then the Soviet Union, you couldn't leave. Like, it was literally trapped in your own country, right? Like you were. It's not like, forget about getting a visa to get into somewhere. You couldn't even get a visa to get out. It's kind of a crazy world where, like, you grow up in a country. I guess now you still have some places like North Korea, etc., that are like that, but a lot of parts of the world aren't like that. And I think a lot of people can't really even imagine what it'd be like living in a country where you just like you can't even leave. That's not even a possibility. You have to get like a special passport and permission. So I guess both of our families were lucky enough to get that, and we had our several ways of getting to North America.
Absolutely. Do you remember anything about your several years that you spent in Israel before you came to Canada?
Yeah, a lot. We lived in kind of like a settlement in the West Bank.
Wow.
Surrounded by like a fence and like a military checkpoint, which is, I went on birthright in 2010 and went back to that city. We had like a little caravan, one room, basically a trailer park. I guess you can call it that. I remember going to school. I remember going to Jerusalem, going to the Wall. My parents said that I met Gorbachev when he was there. Apparently, I don't remember that, but that sounds cool from what they say, like the former president. But I don't actually remember that. It's funny. I have memories of myself speaking Hebrew. Like I know what I'm saying in English. Like I remember like speaking Hebrew and like with my friends and stuff when I was young, but I don't actually know what I said. My dad worked on a chicken farm, so I remember hanging out with the chickens a lot and picking like getting eggs, or like running away from them when they scared me. Like had some friends in the neighborhood. That kind of thing.
Yeah, that's super crazy. So do you speak Hebrew now? Or
no, Shalom Hover, Toda Rabah, Boker Tov.
Right. Just a few phrases. Yeah.
When I went on birthright, like it was weird. Like I didn't understand anything. So because when I moved, I remember distinctly when I moved to Vancouver to Canada, I had to like learn English, and that was really hard for me. It was 5 and ESL and all that, or I guess ETL, third language. But it was really hard, and so I think I like purposely and not purposely, but when you're so young, you kind of forget. And I didn't have anyone to speak Hebrew with, so I just learned English instead.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, because it's not like your parents spoke Hebrew. I mean, they moved to they're Russian. I'm assuming you speak Russian or spoke Russian.
Yeah, I speak Russian, but they spoke it like not as well as I did. I actually spoke it better because when you're a kid, you learn faster.
Right.
But then you got it.
Yeah. Wow. So you grew up in Vancouver, and you mentioned you went to college in upstate. You went to Cornell in Ithaca. I went to Binghamton, so just like an hour and a half away.
Yeah.
So super close, and visited Cornell. Beautiful, or Ithaca is a beautiful city. Lots of great restaurants and things like that. But you spent, prior to that, you grew up and you went to high school and everything. That was all in Vancouver.
Yeah. So I grew up in Vancouver, lived here my whole life until university, high school, elementary school, high school. I grew up swimming, so I got to travel a lot for swimming. I went to Australia a couple times, went to California, Oregon, all around Canada. So, and that's actually how I got into Cornell. Was never like a good student. I was always an okay student and a decent athlete. So it kind of worked out. But anyway, I grew up here in Vancouver. It's lucky, I feel very fortunate to live here. It's one of the best places in the world, and that's why I'm back here now after leaving for a while and coming back.
Yeah, Vancouver's beautiful. I still have not been, but I really want to go to Whistler.
Yeah.
One of these winters. So did you? So I know you studied, I think economics or applied economics at Cornell. Did
Yeah.
you kind of, did you were you one of those kids growing up or like in high school that you just like were a bit hustler, like business, starting businesses, or were you kind of like, economics is, I studied econ too. It's pretty nerdy. It's not like, hustling and bustling. It's like mathematical equations. So
Yeah, I was the first one. I think that the name economics and like applied economics and management is just a fancy way of saying the business school. Although there were a lot of like hardcore econ classes and finance classes, I stayed away from those, or just like took the minimum ones. Although I did really enjoy my finance class, but I took more like the marketing, kind of the entrepreneurship minors, lecture series where different entrepreneurs would come in and talk about their experiences. And yeah, growing up as a kid, I was definitely one of the kind of trying to always make money. Like we were pretty poor, right? Like immigrant family. I'm guessing you can relate, right? Like you try and any kind of 5 cents that you can use at 7-Eleven to buy some candies was precious. So like lemonade stands, started like knocking on doors asking for people's recyclables like bottles and pop cans to go take them to get those 5-cent candies that I mentioned, or 25 cents to play Mortal Kombat arcade games, just things like that. And then like I also did. I was really into this program called College Pro Painting, which was like it wasn't really like entrepreneurial as a job, but you go to door to door, and I guess that's where my sales experience came or started. Is just like knocking on people's doors and convincing them to get housing estimates for painting their houses. So I would do that a lot, and just generally like always trying to do something to make some money, or just to learn, right? And my parents were also into MLM when we first moved, so I learned a lot from Amway, like the very famous one. Didn't really go into it too much, but like learned a lot from that, and that made an impact on me as well.
What was it? Because I've heard a lot of podcasts where people talk about doing door-to-door sales and how much that really impacted them eventually when they started their own company, because it kind of, it builds this like tough skin. I mean, you literally have people slamming the door in your face.
Yeah.
You have any? I've never done it, and I probably, I feel like I'm pretty outgoing, but I would be petrified to go do door-to-door sales. What was that experience like for you? I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah, well, I started when I was really young, like, and it wasn't like one of those things where it's like, I don't know how we started. It was me and my friend Anton, and like, we just had this idea because I have no idea how it started. I just remember that we did it, and I was 5 or 6, like I was really young, maybe 7, I don't know. And at that time, I think we were just so young that we didn't really expect much, and like having a random 6 or 7-year-old knock on your door and say like, hey, do you have any recyclables? It's like pretty easy sell. So I remember like actually getting a lot of people being like, yeah, here's a bottle of wine or like, because it's not like it's more just like doing them, like they were doing us a favor, right? It's not like we were actually selling anything to them, like, because if you think about it, they could easily go and recycle those things. Right. But like back then, I guess I just kind of, it was just like a hobby. It wasn't like I was too naive to be scared. It was just
right.
And I guess if you really think about it now, like that probably was dangerous. That I shouldn't be doing
right.
As such a young kid. My son won't be doing that. At least maybe I'll be watching him. But right. It was also in the 90s, and I think things like a little bit more safer back then. But yeah, and then I guess when I was in high school, I guess that there was always that fear, but it was more like the excitement of when it'll happen, like when it does happen. And I think I got paid $10 for every painting estimate, and some nights I got 10 estimates. That's like $100, and it's a lot of money for like a 14, 15-year-old kid. So yeah, I don't know. It's just always been part of my personality. Like me, my brother, like my younger brother, we're complete opposites. Like he's very much like, he's an amazing developer, designer, like tech. He's not outgoing. Like I can't code worth my, save my life. And if you saw my designs from the early days of VanHack, you'd laugh. But we have, each person has their strengths, and I don't know really. I think it's just a natural thing that I did. So yeah.
Cool. No, that's awesome. I was just curious. I always wonder if I had done that, whether things would have been different, or if I would like started my entrepreneurial journey, if you will, earlier on.
Yeah, I don't think so. Like, because really, like my success, like really only like quote unquote success came when I was like in my mid to late 20s. So I guess every experience builds upon itself, but there's different things you can do, right? Like whether that's I mean, I'm not sure, the things that you did growing up, but I'm sure they had an impact on you as well.
100%. Yeah. Honestly, the thing that impacted me the most, because I was really, really shy when I was a kid, the thing that impacted me the most, and I will say this live on the air, I worked at Abercrombie and Fitch in the mall here.
Nice.
And I wasn't one of those obviously like greeters in the front, but I worked in the store, and everyone has to be nice to the people coming in. And that forced me, because I had no, it was my job to talk to strangers, and that forced me to talk to strangers. The biggest thing, my biggest takeaway from that job was just getting out of my comfort zone and like getting out of my shell and just being able to come up to anyone. That was, I mean, I wasn't a kid, I was 16, 17, but still.
It's super formative. And like, I guess like you just kind of learn that what's the worst thing that can happen, right? Like you already have like 0 in sales. So if you go ask a bunch of people and they all say no, you're where you started. So
exactly. Totally. Yeah. I mean, and that mindset, I think as you get older, if you're not used to that, it might be scary, but you're right. If you have that experience during your formative years, it really helps. So, all right, you went to Cornell, you studied economics, you swam, and I was reading about you and sort of your background, and it sounds like you started your first kind of venture, if you will. I read your senior year, right? So it was like a hiking trip that you put together. You ended up rebranding and calling it Mountains for Moms. Can you talk a little bit about sort of, because it's so interesting, and when I look at the things that you did afterwards, it sort of doesn't tie into it thematically, I think. And so I'm curious, how did you get into it, if you can share, and sort of what was your role with that as, the founder or organizer? Yeah,
definitely. That was, looking back, like it's probably one of the highlights of my life in a way, like that whole experience, just because it tied a bunch of things that I liked together. And most importantly, I got to kind of climb Mount Kilimanjaro and kind of have this really cool life experience of going to Africa. And like, that was really, really cool. But it was one of those things where it was a little bit against the grain for me, like kind of like what you said. I grew up swimming, and like that was my life, and I got into Cornell with swimming. But my senior year, between my junior and senior year, I interned in a company in Australia, and was kind of bored at work one day and Googling around for what to do with this grant that I had received, or scholarship, to do volunteer work abroad. If Cornell has this program called Cornell Tradition, where if you have, they would they would pay for your flight and hotel if you were doing international volunteer work. It was a way to kind of help students see the world, and not just international, like any volunteer work. They would like, if you were, I don't know, if you spent anyway, it doesn't matter. It was a really good program. So usually people get that program when they start, like at university, you have 4 years to spend $4,000. And I actually got into it my senior year. So I had 1 year. So I had to kind of go big. And I was like, I have this opportunity, and what am I going to do is like literally spend this money. Like, this is such a gift, and I have to make the best of it. And so I was looking around for things to do during winter break or spring break. Winter break, like kind of the first one. And I read this article in, it was a Ning network. I don't know if you remember what those are. It was kind of like it was like, it used to be like a way to create a community online back in, I guess, 2009. Wow. And it was a bunch of Cornell alumni sharing stories. And one of them was this guy named Seth Cochran, who started a program, or did a Kilimanjaro fundraising climb and raised money for cleft lip surgery. And I thought that was really cool. Because I was part of this program in university called Bold, and one of the things we did was we raised money for solar panels in Kenya. And I was thinking like go to Kenya and maybe like help them with getting more solar panels or something like that. I was really into social entrepreneurship in college. Like I really got into that during that whole space at that time. And it was something I was thinking, like, what am I going to do? So anyway, I read this article and I thought, you know what, let me reach out to Seth. And I reached out to him, and he replied right away, like 10 minutes later, and we set up a call. And he was like, like I started this new charity called Operation Fistula, and we raise money for women who have obstetric fistula, which is a condition that occurs during child labor, where a woman, if she's malnutrition or too kind of skinny, has like a miscarriage and ends up getting a fistula in her bowels, which means she's incontinent, can't control her bowels, and basically gets excommunicated from, her husband divorces her if she's married, and like just basically like smells really bad all the time, and it's just a really terrible life condition, right? Like you're still alive, but like you basically have your life quality go really low, and it's a $250 surgery to fix it, and takes like half an hour. So it's a really easy fix and a really big like input to impact. So he kind of talked about that, and I hadn't heard of it before, and I thought that was really interesting. And he said, I'll coach you through the whole process and set you up with the guides and explain how everything will work. And then you should just if you focus on my charity. And I said, of course, that sounds good. And so I came back to college, and I had to make a really hard decision whether I was going to continue swimming or not. So swimming was like basic my identity, right? Like it's kind of how Laborless, is for you, or VanHack is, I guess, for me. It's like part of who you are. And as a student athlete growing up, my goal growing up was to go to the Olympics. A bunch of my friends went to the Olympics, and represent Canada and other countries. And I had to choose, do I want to keep swimming or not? And I realized swimming kind of got me this far. And if I swim my senior year, it's not going to make a huge difference. But if I do this kind of crazy different thing, then that'll make maybe make a bigger difference in my life, and also be a more fun experience. And so I decided to stop swimming, which was a really tough decision, and kind of go all in on Mountains for Moms. Back then it was called the Fistula Free Climb, and then we rebranded. And I remember I started a club. So I guess when you talk about starting a company, like Cornell, anyone can start a club. So you just go and register the club. And I was too late, because every day or every year they have this club day for all incoming freshmen, or everyone who wants to go. And it was in this huge auditorium, and they had a bunch of tables. And I went to literally every single table by table, being like, hey, does your club want to partner with my club and help me promote this trip that I'm doing? I'm looking for students to come with me, because I wanted to raise as much money as possible. So I figured if more people came with me to Kilimanjaro, then more people would it'd be a bigger network to ask their friends for donations. Mm-hmm. Just again, back to the hustle, and just asked a bunch of people. And at the end of that day, I remember I was telling someone about this, and then a guy came up to me, he was listening to our conversation. He's like, you know what, you should go and talk to that guy who's doing the Kilimanjaro trip. This sounds like you two should talk. And I was like, well, that's me. I'm that guy. And it's word has spread, I guess. And then ended up recruiting 11 people or 13 people. I forget exactly now how many, but something around that, and different students. We had one alumni come as well. And it was a really cool experience. We got to go to Africa and spend 2 weeks there. 1 week, climbing. 1 week, we went on a safari. Went to Zanzibar. It was really fun. And raised, I believe, $8,000 for charity. And then the best part was that we were in the newspaper, and people heard about it, and then it got duplicated at Dartmouth and other students at Northwestern, as well as another group at Cornell. So I think there were 3 or 4 other climbs that happened post ours. And it didn't really last too much more than that, but it kind of that's where it kind of ended. But it was a really cool life experience, and it led me to getting my job, my first job at university, because it was I was applying for a job that was looking for people with leadership experience, mm-hmm. and I could point to that experience as being a leadership experience. So anyway, that's a huge story, but that's kind of how Mountains for Moms came about.
No, it's incredible, because you think about all of the different sort of real life skills that you pulled from putting this together, right? Forget about just the travel, but you raised funding, you had to sell, you had to just, figure things out in terms of training people and like you said, leadership. It's incredible. And I like how you share that it was kind of scary for you, or a big decision to stop swimming, but you kind of sounds like you made the right decision. In your head, you were saying, all right, the next year there's not going to be a huge substantial impact on the rest of my life. It's time for me to do something big again. And I felt like it feels to me like this was a big thing, which is super cool.
Yeah. Looking back, it definitely was the right choice.
And obviously, first of all, that was entrepreneurial. Starting a club. I started my first entrepreneurial endeavor was starting a club in law school. I had never, because as an entrepreneur, I think you just create something out of nothing. You have an idea and you have to implement it somehow into the world. And, obviously you had done that before with maybe selling lemonade or what have you. But this was a structured organization, if you will. Mm-hmm. And it sounds cool, because you took that and you turned it into your first full-time job. Now, the first full-time job, was this in Brazil now?
Yeah. So I was part of a group called ISEC, which is the world's largest student-run nonprofit that helps students get jobs abroad, which is mm-hmm. Similar to VanHack in a way. So there's parallels there. And so hey, ISEC, if anyone knows or is part of ISEC, it's pretty cool, storied organization that was started after World War II, and it's a very, very awesome program. Anyway, my winter break, I went to Tanzania, and then my spring break, I actually went to Rio and did a volunteer spring break in Rio, cleaning up community center in a favela in the slum in Rio. And I loved that experience. It was really, really great. And I, at that week, got an email from ISEC saying there's a job for Canadians to work in Brazil. And I was like, sign me up. That's awesome. And it happened to be at the world's second largest mining company, Valley, and was just a fantastic experience. So yeah, that first job actually literally was in Brazil. Like, it was also around the time where, and I'm sure you remember this, like 2009, 2010, the financial crisis, and everyone in New York was kind of like, all my friends were going to work for Goldman and Deutsche Bank and all those companies, and I didn't want to be part of that scene. Like, it wasn't for me. So I kind of wanted to look. I was looking for something different and going abroad. I actually had offers in Brazil, India, and China, and I chose Brazil. And I'm glad I did. It worked out. But I always wanted to get my first job abroad after university.
That's so cool. Did you have to go through an immigration, like a work visa process?
Valley, being the world's second largest mining company, has its perks, and they were able to facilitate that for me. So I did have to go to the Brazilian consulate. I remember doing my visa, but I had they took care of all that. I didn't have to worry about it. They just said, get this and do this, and you'll be fine.
So, I mean, you kind of went through their global mobility program. I mean, if you take a step back and look at they were relocating an employee from Canada to Brazil.
Yes. Yeah, it was crazy. Like the first 2 weeks, actually, I spent in Indonesia. That was even crazier. Like, so, I think this is what happens when you're like a multi-billion-dollar company, that you can just like have a trainee. Like, I literally flew from Vancouver to Toronto, spent 3 days in Toronto to meet my boss in Canada, like, in my Canadian Toronto manager. And then I flew back through Vancouver to Indonesia to spend 2 weeks in Indonesia, like learning about this new production system that we're implementing. And then from Indonesia, I flew to Brazil. So it was a crazy experience. In Indonesia, we were like in a mine in the middle of nowhere. South Sulawesi is the island there with a copper mine, or nickel mine, sorry. It was a cool experience, a different life experience. But Valley was crazy large company, and also showed me things I don't like about like large bureaucratic organizations. But it definitely had a lot of perks.
That's super, super crazy. I want to take one quick pause just to say hello to a few people. Valerie Salcido from Austin, Texas. Thank you, Valerie, for joining. We have someone here who's from Houston, but looks like your privacy doesn't let us show who you are. But thank you anyway for joining from Houston. And then Nicola from Germany, right, Nicola? I think you're in Berlin, if I'm not mistaken. And forgive me, I haven't slept a lot this week, so if I'm totally off on that, don't hold me to it. But thanks for joining as well, and thanks for commenting. So I want to, before we jump out of Brazil, I want to explore your time there a little bit, because you worked for the mining company. You left the mining company, but as far as I understand, you kind of stayed in Brazil and then like launched a few ventures, or at least partnered with a few ventures.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because again, I think it's interesting, not only that, first of all, these ventures, as far as I read, kind of mostly dealt with sort of connecting people with opportunities and jobs and things like that, which, to your point, is really kind of what you're doing right now with VanHack, number one. Yeah. But number two, I'm also interested from maybe, if from the immigration perspective, how are you able to do all this in Brazil?
Okay. So I laugh because there's some, so I guess I'll just say, like, I spent like 6 or 7 months living illegally in Brazil. So I was an illegal immigrant in my life. And then the funny part about that is that the fine, or the penalty for that is literally like $300 penalty that you have to pay, and that's it. Like that's literally it. There's no like jail time, or like you're not gonna go into some processing center or whatever. I mean, the illegal immigration problem in Brazil isn't that big, because it's Brazil just is happy to have people there, and anyway, it's a whole like mess thing. But I can get into that more. But it worked out. Like, I paid my fee, and I'm good from a legal point of view. It's just funny. But it was like one of the reasons why I changed jobs and like led me to some stuff. So okay, so where should we start? 2012. So 2012, kind of similar to how I decided to quit swimming, I decided to quit Valley, and was like a big leap, or literally 2012 was a leap year, and there's this project called the Leap Project, and I leaped in, kind of quit Valley, a very, very like stable, good job, especially for like, I think it was 22 at the time, or 23 or something, and I was about to get like get a BMW, so I was about to lease a car, like a very expensive car. And like, kind of like, my friend was like, you know what, this is a trap. You don't want to do this. Like, you're going to be stuck there. You have to make the payments. You won't be able to leave. And I spent a week in Rio, which would have been my last week in Brazil, with Valley, right in December of 2011, 10 years ago, I guess. And that week, I had more fun in that 1 week than I did like all this other, like the 6 months prior that I was living in Canada. And it you know, had to do with the weather, had to do with my friends that I had made in Brazil. I got to see them again. I just felt alive. And so I remember distinctly being like, if there's a way for me to come back to Brazil, like, universe, I'm open, show me a sign. And that on the way back, on the flight back from Rio to Vancouver, I was in line with you know, the other passengers to get on the flight. And the lady behind me turned around and asked me for the time. And I told her, and we started chatting. Turned out she was a professor of social entrepreneurship at Stanford. And she had she's crazy. And she had a nonprofit that that did data collection in the favelas and in the slums of Rio, in order to understand better what the consumer goods, like consumer trends, were in the favelas, as well as giving demographic and like socioeconomic data back to the communities. So basically, and the best thing was that they would deploy local youth who used to be drug dealers or like have some hardships to go out and do those services and help them get jobs and training. It's called Mobile Metrics. And I fell in love with the idea. I thought it was super cool. And I quit my job and went and volunteered as a salesperson for this nonprofit. So that was my beginning of 2012. And I basically went from making a good salary to $0, living off my savings. I lived in a slum, which was kind of a cool thing. It sounds more badass than it was. It was like this little kind of slum, but not really like dangerous slum. There weren't like guys with guns or something like that. But it was a pretty, you know, not like a really nice place to live. There's this guy, Paul, who actually passed away recently in a motorcycle accident. This guy Paul from Bolivia, like really, really nice guy who like basically let me like live rent free and opened his house for me and showed me around. It was really, really nice. And it was one of those periods in my life where I was kind of just like looking for something and didn't really know what was next. I was volunteering for this company, and like actually like ended up helping them land a big contract with Unilever through a connection at Cornell. And so like that was cool, but I was still looking for something else and looking for them to do for myself, and ended up getting connected to this startup accelerator called 21212. 21 is the area code of Rio. 212, I'm guessing you know, New York, right? So they would connect New York or American entrepreneurs with American investors with Brazilian entrepreneurs. They're trying to be like the YC Techstars of Brazil back in 2012. And I walk in there kind of on one of their first angel days. Like they had this angel day, and then they had demo day. And I walk in on the angel day, and everyone, because I you know, look from North America, everyone started pitching me. And I was like, guys, no, I'm a broke college student or broke recent grad. I'm not an angel investor. But I love to learn more about your companies and try and get involved. And there's this one startup that I really liked. I thought it was a really cool idea. They had about 40,000 users at the time. It was called Zona Universitaria. It was basically kind of like Facebook, but not like Facebook. It was kind of like a student social network, but for like academically focused. So it would like help you like share homework tips with your friends, help you find rides. It was like helping you find a roommate. It was trying to like be like everything for students. And I heard the company was like potentially going to get kicked out of the program because the founder was just like on his own, and he was more of a developer designer kind of person. And they were like asking him to be a little bit more focused and to start selling. So I ran into him again, like just randomly one day on Ipanema Beach, of all places. And he was like, I basically straight up told him, like, listen, if I join you, can I have like small part of equity in the company and like be a co-founder? And he was like, you know what, sure, because he didn't really have anything to lose. And I basically worked for like nothing. And this was around the time when I started getting into my visa issues. But yeah, so we went through the kind of the accelerator program. That's really when I got into tech. Like I started learning about what a pivot was, or like what a lean startup. I read in Eric Ries's book, and learned about customer discovery and landing pages, A/B testing. What JavaScript is, what PHP is. Like I kind of started learning about that, how to talk to investors and raise money and all those things. It was really, really cool. And I think I kind of like arbitraged my experience, because as a 20, I think I was 23, 24, I don't think I would have been able to do that at that level, at least if I had been living in North America. Mm-hmm. But because I was like the token North American guy who could talk to investors and kind of could sell rather than being a software engineer and kind of entrepreneurial, like CTO kind of profile, they let me do that. So I got to pitch investors. I got to it was great. It was really great. So yeah, I'll pause there, but yeah, that's kind of the experience.
It's incredible, because it's kind of like, I mean, maybe a little bit different, but it's almost like you were a little bit of a big fish in a small sea, kind of.
I wouldn't say that. No, I was a lost kid trying to figure things out. I definitely not big fish. I was just like, like I just happened to be at a place where they gave me an opportunity. And I might have not have gotten, like, if I had gone to San Francisco and knocked on YC's door, someone like one of the YC companies would have helped me be an intern at the time or something like that. It would have had success there too, maybe. But it was just like being a unique fish, maybe better to say that way. Like, right, like, I don't know, maybe like being a narwhal in South America is rare, right? You don't really see too many narwhals, the fish with the horn that's in the Arctic, right? So I think it's more that.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I mean, it's true. I guess that's what I was thinking. It's just standing out, being different, and being kind of memorable, where somebody could sort of think about how you could potentially benefit them or complement them. So you said you were working with this company. That's when your sort of visa issues started. Did you end up staying with them for a while? Like, how did it all go? Because it seemed like you did a couple of different things in Brazil before you finally returned. I think in 2014, right? You finally returned to North America.
Yeah, to Canada. Yeah. So so the visa part thing started really bothering me, because I wasn't able to like legally work for this company that I was personally a co-founder of, and just like I don't know what to do, and my savings account started running low. And so I had found out about this like Brazilian law where you can you can extend your visa. You usually get 3 months as a tourist, and then you can extend it for another 3 months. And then after that, like you can't extend it anymore. And I found out that the kind of how you say the penalty is 800 reais or something like that. So it's very low. And funny story, like you only pay that fee not when you leave Brazil, but when you come back. So and then like I left and came back a couple times, but the times that I tried to pay that fee, I actually wasn't able to because the machine was broken or something, like very Brazilian thing. So yeah, so I actually only ended up paying it in 2018 when I was coming to Brazil to get married. But my wife and I had our second wedding in Brazil. So and I almost didn't get let into the country that time. Wow. So I almost didn't get to go to my second wedding. So yeah, that was fun. Anyway, so yeah, I actually ended up going to like Falls de Iguaçu in Argentina, crossing the border, and then coming back, and like it was a whole thing. And I ended up leaving Zona Universitaria partly because of this, because another startup in the same accelerator group called Easy Aula offered me a higher salary, and they had raised 600K reais, so about like I guess $200,000, or I'm not sure the exchange rate now. Not crazy amount of money, but enough money to like apparently they were going to sponsor my visa. That actually didn't end up working out. I ended up getting fired, and it just was like a bad experience. Yeah, then eventually I joined a company called Axiom, which is a large American company that did sponsor my visa. And so I finally got a Brazilian work visa like 2 years later. But that only lasted for like 6 or 7 months before I got fired again and ended up going back to Canada in July 2014.
Can you talk a little bit about some of those sort of endings with these companies? Only because I've been in that position too. I almost feel like it's almost like a notch on your belt. I mean, people wear it with pride, and it's for different reasons. It could be downsizing. It could be a personality. I mean, there's so many different reasons.
I'm just a bad employee, but yeah.
I mean, and that's sometimes a valid reason too. It might not be that you were inherently bad. It wasn't right. It wasn't the right fit. Yeah. But I'm curious if you could share, maybe at least a takeaway or something from those experiences, and whether that sort of helped you say, I got to just start something rather than joining with someone else.
Yeah, the Easy Aula one was really hard. It was probably the lowest point in my life, because I went from like making this hard decision to quit Zona Universitaria to go to Easy Aula. Like, it was really hard decision. It was really awkward too, because like we were all working literally in the same co-working space. It was just one big room. So I took my computer and like put it to the other side of the room, and I could like see the company I used to be at like right there, and I would see them every day, and it was just really awkward. And looking back, like I don't know. I mean, I did it, but and it worked out, and like I met my wife because of it, and so good things happened. But you know, it was a tough kind of awkward thing. Lesson learned. But I was in super high hopes. Like Ilyas had just gotten a bunch of money from Macmillan, who's a large publisher from the UK. I was basically like the COO, second in command, in charge of sales. But what I learned from that experience was that we spent way too much time and focus on building a product and trying to sell something where there really was a product market fit. We kind of covered it up. Like we had made a few sales here and there, but it wasn't that scalable and repeatable because we were doing offline in-world classes. It was kind of like Skillshare. I'm not sure if anyone knows familiar with Skillshare, but like before Skillshare went online, they were doing in-person classes. And so we wanted to be like the Skillshare of Brazil. But every time you do an in-person class, it just like is a huge, it's basically like you're running a mini event, and you have to find the place, and people can show up late, and you have to like, oh, it's a whole mess. And so, and if you do like 15 of them in a month, like, or in a week, that's crazy. So anyway, I was the only salesperson there, and it was tough because I was like also not that good at Portuguese. Like my Portuguese wasn't that good. I mean, it's not perfect now, but that was like, you know, I've only been speaking Portuguese for a few years back then, 2012, 2013. And so I struggled a lot in that role, and we ended up, you know, getting let go, and I don't know, like the company ended up going out of business later on, and you know, whatever. But it was a really tough moment because like I had very little savings at that time, and like it was a really tough time. So I was like going from like this high of like pitching at demo day and talking to investors and like it's going to be huge, to like being jobless and broke and like living in a foreign country. And as awesome as Rio is, like it's still hard, you know, to go through that and stuff. So and around that time, like and both of those companies were ed tech, kind of thinking about how to help people and like learn, and then how people get jobs. But like that whole kind of and I guess around that time VanHack was kind of born, because there's this program. So after Ilyas didn't work out, I started working on a project, like just kind of like a side project. I wasn't thinking it'd be a business, but just I started a course called Brazil Career Blueprint, which was basically like a lot of my friends were asking me how to move to Brazil. At the time, it was hot brick country. The whole economic crash hadn't happened yet, and so I basically created a course to teach people how to move to Brazil. And when I did that, all my Brazilian friends were like, "Yo, you're doing this the wrong way. You got to help Brazilians move to Canada." So that was kind of like the starting of the seed of the idea of VanHack.
Wow, that's so fascinating. Yeah, I can see how Brazilians are like, oh, hold on a second, we want opportunities where you're from. I suppose both sides are great, but wow.
Yeah, but the people wanting to move to Brazil were kind of like, that would be nice. Maybe I'll go there, hang out in the sun, blah, blah, blah. Like it wasn't like I need to leave and I need to go to somewhere else. Like that it's a much different like vitamin versus painkiller. So yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just to take a quick pause, we got a comment here from our friend. Hey gents, what's the best destination right now for tech workers? Why is it Canada? We'll get to that in a little bit, Josh, but thank you for your comment. And thank you for watching. Rowan Fisher says Calgary is working hard at it for sure. This is the most recent.
Yeah, Calgary is definitely investing a lot of money to make that happen.
Into tech, right? There's a big kind of scene blowing up there.
Yeah, they do a good job. Their economic development agency is probably the best in the country. Although Toronto Global might be upset that I said that.
And also Vancouver. I mean, Vancouver's really, British Columbia is doing a really great job too, no, with tech.
I think we're not at like, I don't know. This might be getting a little political, or like having Canadian cities getting mad at each other, but I think the Vancouver Economic Commission and BC Tech are not doing as good of a job as other parts of the country. Not that they're not doing a good job, or but I think that other parts, like I think also like this is really tangible thing, but like I think Calgary just invests a lot more money, right? Like I think the city of Calgary has like a team of 50 or 100 people, like just all working on this, whereas I don't think the Vancouver Economic Commission has as much resources. So I think just because of that, I also think, and people in Calgary might be upset that I said this, that more people want to move to Vancouver than want to move to Calgary because the quality of life is, frankly, a little bit better. Although cost of housing, etc., we can get more granular into the reasons. Yeah. But I do think Vancouver is a more popular destination than Calgary. So I think it's like they try and, I don't know, make up for it might be the wrong word, but like they really try and go out of their way and show how awesome Calgary is. And Anyway, yeah, that's a whole, I can talk for hours about different locations, and then you get to Europe, and yeah. Anyway.
I mean, it's like a marketing for the country. I mean, and because you have provinces and, obviously growing cities. Before we move on to that, just Nicolas says to you that it takes courage to do what you do. Entrepreneurs are essentially gamblers, all or nothing for what you believe in, what you feel is right. And that could be both for starting your own company or, like you said, Ilya, like just taking a leap of faith. You didn't start your own company, but you kind of restarted a journey by quitting whatever you were doing and, kind of starting a new journey with someone else who was building a company.
For sure. And Nicola, I mean, I'll push back a little bit. Like, I think like gambling is, a little bit, there's a little bit of that, but it's also, I think, a lot of intelligent risk. And it's not like you're going to go into a casino and just put everything on red without any, like, I think it's a little bit more like poker than it is roulette. Whereas I think poker is more of a skill of game, like a game of skill, rather than that is totally a game of luck. Because you have the World Series of Poker, and typically for some reason it's always like the same guys or girls who are at the top of the list of poker player. But I'm sure you wouldn't have that with roulette where it's 100% chance. So I do think that there's things that you can do to really prepare yourself and kind of put the odds in your favor. So yeah, and then also I'll say, like, I think there's some people, and I guess I'm including that like just couldn't do anything else. So I see like working at the same job for 40 years as a much bigger risk than going out and starting your company, at least especially now when it's so easy and cheap to do that compared to how it was maybe 20, 30 years ago. And I guess last thing is, like, I am super lucky. I have a safety net, like my family. I moved back home with my parents after like my experience in Brazil didn't work out. Lived with them for a few months as I got back on my feet here in Canada. So I think that there's something to be said for that as well.
Yeah, no, thank you. I 100% agree with you on that. I feel the same way. I also moved back home and lucky to have that safety net as well. One last thing, Melita says, hello from Vancouver. Amazing story, Ilya. So
yeah, nice to meet you, Melita.
Thank you.
Maybe we can go for a socially distanced coffee or walk one day. Nice to meet you.
So I want to jump back into your story, and you kind of started touching on this. You had this whole journey in Brazil. You started company, or you kind of co-launched companies. You joined companies. You grew. You pitched. You got fired. You got fired again. Like, or it just is. You were illegally present for some time. I mean, like, what a crazy journey. You eventually moved back to Canada, and then you were just starting to share. You moved back home, right, to kind of like build the foundation back up. What did you do? You said you had started to think about this idea for VanHack, where you realized, wow, there's actually a group of people in Brazil who need advice on how to move to Canada, right? Mm-hmm. And like, so what were those first steps you took? Because now you're out of resources. I mean, for the most part, it sounds like you're back at home. You're kind of starting from scratch, but you have this huge network and you have this amazing experience under your belt. What did you do when you then like returned to Canada?
Yeah, so coming back to Canada, I think I had this experience. I had the experience of seeing Canada from a Brazilian point of view, which I think was really valuable. I had this reverse culture shock. Like, I remember coming back home to Vancouver after 4 years in Brazil, and like being amazed that there's not walls in front of all the houses, and I could literally go up to like these huge fancy houses in nice neighborhoods and like knock on the door if I wanted to, or see inside the house. Where in Brazil, like every house had a wall in front of it with barbed wire and all, just as like one example. Or going to the bank, you had to like go through metal detectors and things like that. So I really felt like, wow, this is a great place to live. Like, I can walk with my phone at night and like not be worried about getting robbed. So I just kind of felt that appreciation. And then at the same time, I had started this Facebook page, literally just like on a whim one night, called Morar no Canadá, which means live in Canada in Portuguese. And like back when Facebook likes on pages were a thing back in 2014, that like blew up to like 4,000 likes, or was it likes or follows? I don't even remember. A bunch of people were engaged with that page. I can't even keep up anymore with all that. But anyway, it was like this eye-opening moment, and I got a bunch of DMs like from people, and they would write their life stories like, my name is this, I'm from here, and I really want to move to Canada, I want to live in Canada, et cetera, et cetera. So I really found this pain of these people and this hunger that they had to change their lives. And then at the same time, when I was posting like, on social media that I was back in Vancouver, a lot of my friends who I met at 21-2-2 and all the meetups that I would go to, all the software engineers, mostly software developers, would like post on my like comment on my pictures or send me DMs, be like, I saw you move back to Canada. How do I move there? Like, I want to move there. This is like dream. Like, I really want to go. And so I thought, hey, maybe there's something here. And the original idea was to actually do lead generation for the coding schools that we have here, and help people learn how to code, because I was still very much in the education, like ed tech mindset. And so that was kind of the first idea, and I posted a terrible looking landing page with Portuguese spelling errors online. Yeah. I got like a few hundred people signed up, and I had calls with all of them, the typical customer discovery, lean startup, trying to learn. And what I realized is that they don't want to come learn how to code. They already know how to code. They want to learn how to do interviews in English and how to, have a good resume and just get a job in Canada, or originally Vancouver, right? VanHack is Vancouver for hackers, but now it's a van that moves hackers. Anyway, but yeah, so that was our first product. It was called VanHack Premium, and now it's called VanHack Academy, where we teach soft skills to tech talent and help them prepare themselves for international job search. And then that built up what is now one of the world's largest talent pools of senior tech talent who's interested in international jobs.
Wow. So it really started as a Facebook group, and really it started with you just trying to say, like, what's the easiest way to create a community? I mean, Facebook, you just make a group. You don't have to code anything. You don't have to build anything. Yeah.
I mean, I think, it started with a Facebook page and then became a landing page. And then I remember we had like a Messenger group, like, a bunch of people in a Messenger room. And then we moved that to WhatsApp. Now we're on Slack. But yeah, and it's not like we started trying. I didn't think like, okay, I got to create a community. I just I wanted to teach people, and the best way to teach people things was to be able to have them all hang out and connect with each other. It's like a classroom. You go to a classroom, and what's the best part of going to school is hanging out with your friends, right? So, at least it was for me. I don't know.
That's right. No, I totally agree with you. The social aspect is so important, and especially because I think here people could probably learn from each other as well. It sounds like, as well as from you as kind of the main source of information.
Yeah. Our first values we hacked together. So it really was about, like, especially once you get hired or like get an interview, share that. And that's much more powerful, right? Someone else who's like in your shoes, sharing their experience and talking about how it was for them, rather than, me, or someone who's kind of like not the same as you in terms of like you're both software developers, or you have this more in common, and you're both trying to get to the same place. So success cases and sharing success cases from the beginning, even like success cases that weren't our success cases. Like I just in the beginning would go to different people who were Brazilians. In the beginning, it was just for Brazilians. Everything I said in Portuguese, like Brazilians working in tech in Vancouver. Like our first interview, I think, was with a Brazilian marketer named Andrea, who's working at Hootsuite, and talking about her experience of what she did to move to Canada. And, it wasn't a VanHack success case. It was just someone that I knew. And then just kept doing that. And then eventually would have people who VanHack helped too. And then, like the success case side of it, the social side of it kind of grew from there.
So when did you realize this is going to become a company and I need to start getting serious about it?
It's a good question, because I honestly did not take it seriously for the first little while. I think the kind of first time I realized it was, the first kind of memorable moment was, so I really started VanHack like just to be able to pay my rent, and not like my wife and I was working at like a not such a good job, and my wife was studying for dental accreditation. So, we weren't making that much money, and we had this moment where we're like, maybe if we move to a not as nice apartment and pay less rent, like we could have more money for other stuff. And so we went one day, like, to this really terrible basement suite and went to like visit, and just like it smelled bad and was like terrible. And my wife looked at me after, was like, if we move there, I'm going to kill you. So I just like, it's like a really like not like as a husband, like provider kind of, stereotypical, I guess, but whatever. That's kind of I felt really like, okay, this is not good, right? So I need to change something. And I remember waking up the next day, and we had done a webinar that earlier that day for VanHack, promoting our VanHack Academy course. And I remember waking up the next day having like 6 or 7 sales, like a bunch of people bought that product. And I was like, that money that I made overnight was the same difference between what I would have paid for rent at my place and like the bad place. And so it's like, I basically made the money from VanHack that kept me in my current condo that I was. So I remember that was like a distinct moment of waking up and being like, holy crap, like people actually bought this course. And, so that was a really cool moment. And then another moment was when we had Black Friday. So we were like kind of just out of whim, I was like, you know what, let's do a Black Friday sale. And so we started the website and project kind of December 2014, January 2015. And then in November, we did 11 months later, we had a Black Friday sale, and we made I don't remember how much, but more money than we expected. He was like, whoa, a bunch of people bought. And I guess Brazilians love sales. So it's a sort of stereotype, but people really like sales in general. Right. So that moment of this is I was making more money from VanHack than I was in my day job. Okay, something's gonna I need to focus on this and take it seriously. And then I quit my job December 31st, 2015, which was it was a good way to kind of end the year and start the next one. Pretty scared, but at the same time confident that things would go well and start taking it more seriously.
So I have two questions for you. The first question is, you said you were selling a course. So that means that when this Facebook group, community, WhatsApp channel, et cetera, it sounds like it culminated into you putting together an actual course that you charged money for. Yeah.
So at the beginning, it was really janky, kind of WordPress website with a bunch of links and just nothing and not much. But we did this interview practice, which we still do today, that I was the first teacher, and then kind of do live classes on a Zoom room. And then also a bunch of videos and templates and kind of resume reviews. So we take someone's resume, review it, and make it better. LinkedIn, etc. Same thing. Cover letter. It became an online course, a members area kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. And so the second question was, this basically means that you were started full time, if you will, at VanHack in January of 2016.
Yeah.
So that for about 2 years, you basically, or 1 to 2 years, you were kind of 1 year. Okay. You were basically part-time. I mean, really just launching.
Yeah. That led to my third time getting fired. I used to work at Best Buy and an e-commerce analyst, and I think they caught on to the fact that I was working on VanHack on the side, and were you're not performing up to where we want to. But then I was really fortunate enough to get another job at a local startup accelerator called Spring, where the CEO of Spring, Keith Ipple, knew about VanHack and was kind of a mentor for me, as well as he let me kind of sell the Lean Startup course that we were selling. So it was a good kind of next step for me. So I worked there for about a year, and at the time I had both. But towards the end, really VanHack started growing more and decided to. So a lot of people ask me when should I quit my job? It's well, I don't know. You don't quit your job unless you have to, or unless you really have some financial security. I had a kind of family to support, my wife at the time. That was about a year of side hustle for it to become real.
So now you are jumping into VanHack full time. And I'm curious, and I want to get to exactly what it does now, but just before we get there, how did you scale it? Did you create more courses, or did you start offering new services, or what was the first thing that you started to do to actually grow to the trajectory of where you are now?
Yeah, so the biggest thing we did was start focusing on recruiting, and which is our main core business now. I realized kind of accidentally that we can charge people for introducing them to developers, and I thought that was the most amazing thing ever, because I didn't know the recruiting business model. I didn't know anything about the recruiting world. I was always in the education space. And then when I always was the kind of person who introduced my friends or people to each other from a business point of view, saying that name, first name, name, brackets, name, meet, you should meet. And then when someone was if you introduce me to a developer and I hire them, I'll pay you. I was wow, I can make money from making intros. This is awesome. It's what I love to do. So kind of by accident, because people started asking me how much does it cost to meet, to get in touch with developers, and I started making those introductions, and now we have a very, in my mind, very sophisticated platform where you can sign up, post a job, get developers, candidates within 20-30 minutes, and book interviews and a whole bunch of other features. We help this year we're trending at over 1 hire per day, which is exciting. We're just trying to get as many people hired as possible and scale.
And so because I read that you also raised a little bit of money a while back.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, we did Techstars. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so was it through Techstars in Canada?
No, in Berlin. So I think it was Nicola who was in Berlin. So I lived there for 9 months, loved it. We went to Berlin and spent 2 years and a half basically in Europe between Berlin, Lisbon, and Luxembourg. A bunch of trips and stuff all over too. And a lot of our business, we work with SoundCloud, Zalando, Booking.com, and many other European startups. Really, really good tech scene out there. And we're really, I love sending people to Europe, although Canada is the best place to move to, but honestly, man, like if you could go to Barcelona, or you can go to like even Malta, maybe a little bit small, but like sending someone to Europe is awesome because you can like go anywhere so easily for like €100 Ryanair flight. But yeah, I'm Canadian, so Canada's number one.
That's awesome. Okay, so you raise money from Techstars, and I guess so that's it. I mean, since then it's just been organic growth all the way.
Yeah, well, we had a smaller, like, friends and family investor back in 2015 as well, Fred. So those were the two investors. But yeah, like it's funny, like after Techstars Berlin, actually, and Roman, I actually have to run in like a few minutes just because my parents here are coming to pick up my son to go for a walk. So I got.
Oh, sure, yeah, of course, yeah. Thank you for.
Yeah, just like we have like 15 minutes, so it's okay. But my point is that like Techstars Berlin was like, we finished Techstars in Berlin and we're like, okay, let's raise money. But that's what you do after demo day, right? Like you have a pitch and you go and meet with investors. And I was, we were trying to raise, I won't say how much, but we were trying to raise X amount of money. And all the investors were like, no, this is a lifestyle business. This is a services company. It's not going to scale, etc. And then we made the amount of money we were trying to raise in the last 3 months of 2017. So I was just like, you know what? Customers are excited to talk to us. I'm just going to keep focusing on the customers and the investors. That they come. But before, especially early in my entrepreneurial life, like I was like, oh my God, 500 startups. Oh my God, Techstars. Oh my God. Like I would put them on a pedestal and I would like spend way too much time focusing on my PowerPoint presentation on my deck rather than talking to, actual customers who are going to pay and like help like sustain and keep the business alive. So that was like a huge lesson for me. And, one day I'm sure, we'll raise money, but right now we're just kind of heads down and executing.
Yeah, I can 100% relate to that. I spent a lot of time, all of the tabs on my browser that were saved was like 500 startups, YC, TechCrunch, all these things, and now they're gone. Yeah. And not that and those are amazing organizations, obviously, but to your point, unless you're building something that you think is going to immediately scale it in a venture style way, there's so many other business models out there that can really comfortably grow and make money on their own.
Yeah, like a lot of our competitors, like TripleByte, Vettery, Hired, although Hired is kind of an interesting example with what happened there recently. They raised a lot of money. So also Turing just raised like $30 million as a kind of tech hiring marketplace from SF. But then you look at TopTal, which is like a very well-known recruiting marketplace that they raise very little money as well. So I don't know. I think the biggest thing for me is not even the money. It's more like dealing with the right business partner, because you're literally getting married to a business partner who will be there and has like, is involved. So that part of it is like something I don't want to rush into and really find the right person or group to work with.
So I want to ask just one or two more questions to wrap up here. So the first thing is, can you give an overview of what VanHack is doing today? So, you kind of talked about this organic growth and you went from Facebook group to session to lesson to this and that, to then connecting people for money. What do you do today? What can people get out of it, both for employers and for, prospective workers or employees?
Yeah, I love how you put it there, connecting people for money. It's funny. It sounds so simple, right? But there's so many nuances around all that whole thing.
Oh, for sure.
It's harder than it sounds, and it's funny. A few of our ex-employees actually like try to copy VanHack because they think it's easier, and that's a whole another long story. But anyway, okay, so yeah, VanHack today is one of the world's largest communities for tech talent that wants to get hired abroad. Our goal is to be the way that tech talent relocates and be the largest international tech recruiting company in the world, and one day in the universe, who knows. But yeah, we help companies hire senior developers and diverse developers quickly, full-time direct hire, so not outsourcing. And we're able to help fill especially hard to fill roles like senior software developer, machine learning engineer, DevOps engineer, UX designer, CTO, VP engineering. And next week, actually, we're doing a really cool event, which is a Women in Tech Hiring Fair, which will have about 230 senior developers who are women. We'll be connecting with around 60 employers from all over North America and Europe. And we think, I'd love to be proved wrong. It's going to be the largest women in tech for senior developer hiring fair there ever was. We'll see. But we're really excited about that. And another thing that we're excited about is we're launching an applicant tracking system that will be completely free. The goal there is to help mostly startups be able to manage their hiring process and save money while they do that.
That's awesome. And so for those companies that do that, they get the applicant tracking system, and then they can also benefit from the pool of applicants within VanHack, I suppose.
Yeah, if they want, right? Yeah, so it's up to them if they work with us or not. It's more of like, here's an awesome free tool that we're giving to the community because we've been spending 5 years or a few years building that tool internally. We think it's great, and we'd love to have anyone use it to hire not just developers, but any role. You can post any kind of role, manage it, chat with the candidates, book interviews directly, use our matching algorithm, see like videos of the candidates. So a lot of really cool things that we built out that we want to give away as a way to kind of grow the business and get more companies knowing about VanHack.
Got it. So the last question I want to ask you just about the business is, where do you see, I mean, you kind of talked about it a little bit, but where do you see the company going in the future? I mean, it looks like you have a lot of growth opportunity, not just from hiring, but also from building out some sort of a SaaS platform, even if it's a free tool, but it's something that you're providing value through. And especially now after COVID, I mean, work from home, work from anywhere, is becoming more normalized. We're all going to go back to the office. For sure we are. But to some extent, I think people want to go back to the office, at least a little bit. But there's going to be way more people who are going to do WFH and WFA. So I guess what do you see for VanHack going forward? And I guess, how does that fit in,
Yeah. So like, we want to be the way that tech talent relocates from point A to point B, no matter where that is. Like, basically create a borderless world for tech talent. I think a lot more people will be in that category of tech talent moving forward as kind of software eats the world. We see ourselves as being kind of that platform that not only helps you with your job, but also helps you with that whole post-relocation move as well, from the candidate point of view. So you find a great job, find the learning that you need to understand how to get the job, you get the actual job, and then you get set up with this amazing relocation experience, and maybe some perks of like, special offers at banks or mortgages or whatever it is when in your home country. We also would love to work more with government, because I think there's a lot to be done in terms of like promoting specific cities and regions around the world to this talent. A lot of times the talent is not necessarily looking to move to New York, San Francisco, Toronto, Berlin. They're looking to move to maybe like a smaller town or kind of more better quality of life place. So places like that usually aren't seen as tech hubs can attract this talent. And then for companies, we want to be the way that they scale up their engineering teams and build diverse teams and manage and have those people wherever they want to be. And I think giving people the option to work from anywhere, literally anywhere, and being visa compliant and being kind of all that compliant, because we do have an in-house global mobility team that helps with that, and kind of giving that option to them is such a powerful card that they can play when they're hiring. And who are we kidding? There are 0 unemployed software developers in the world, so it's not easy to hire them. So especially startups and scale-ups that are trying to compete with the FANG and like large tech companies, they need all the help they can get. We want to be that partner to them. Be a tech platform, right? So it's not just like a services company. It's a company where you can log in and do 99 or 95% of it like via the platform, and then we have that human element there when it's needed to like help negotiate and close that offer or all that kind of thing. So that's where we want to get to. And there's different projects we're working on, like the ATS and the events and stuff. I feel like we're kind of at the right place at the right time post-COVID. And one thing I'll just kind of say as we wrap up is I can't wait to help developers relocate to the US, because I think there's a lot of really great places in America that are not getting candidates because those candidates can't get into the US. And hopefully H-1B will be changed one day. So, yeah.
Amen to that. That's a great place to end, because I hope exactly the same thing. We need more talent so that we don't fall behind. And we talked about this recently kind of on LinkedIn, but rising tide lifts all ships. Canada benefits, we benefit, Mexico benefits, and I think the whole world benefits. One fun question to end on, because you spent so many years in Brazil, but you also now live in Canada. If you had to retire in one of these countries, which one would you choose?
Well, I would say Canada because my family's here. But if I can bring my family with me, probably Brazil, because you can go to the all the beautiful places. That's definitely a hard one.
The weather's the big differentiator, I suppose.
Yeah, well, actually, we are planning on living in both countries, like half year, or 60-40, 30, 70-30. So we spend the summer in each of the two countries. So why not have the best of both worlds?
Yeah. Oh man, that sounds like a dream. I love it.
Work from anywhere, right? Hey, that's the reality these days.
Yeah, and if you can do it through flying or however, I mean, obviously you're gonna have to fly, but
yeah, COVID will be done in a few months or a year. Like, knock on wood, everything will be fine. And I mean, that's how millions of people live this way already. They just they go to Japan for a couple of months or whatever they want to do. It's totally possible.
Yeah, no, that's true. No, I can't wait to travel again. Well, Ilya, thank you so much. This was awesome. Appreciate you spending your time. Especially we went over a little bit, so thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. If anyone wants to reach out, just shoot me an email, ilya@vanhack.com, and happy to chat.
Yeah, vanhack.com for folks who want to just learn more about the company as well.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing your story. I think it's super interesting and something that a lot of immigration professionals should really be just keeping their eye open about, because we all fit into the same ecosystem.
Exactly. Yeah. If you know any great talent that wants to get hired abroad as an immigration consultant, we have a referral program, and then we also have a referral program for employers. So definitely chat with me about that. If you know companies that are struggling to hire talent and they're open to hiring from abroad, we can help.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Ilya. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Have a good time with your family.
Cheers. Yeah.
Alrighty. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Awesome conversation. So inspiring. Seriously, a brother from another mother. We basically left the former Soviet Union at the same time. Both ended up in North America, both building fairly similar organizations supporting the movement of people globally. So thank you all for joining. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. See you next week. Peace out.